Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. I am so delighted to welcome you to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, Amazon Music, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. 3 wonderful guests are coming your way today. Leia Barrett will join us to celebrate the Odd Dog. Abbi Lee is joining us to tell us all about geocaching with her book, Ghost Town Trivia Hunt. And later in the show, Heidi Rocha will return from Authorpalooza to tell us all about her wonderful series.
Come one, come all, for the mind-bending, dungeon-stomping, time-shifting, dragon-slaying adventure of a lifetime.
What's happening?
Something bigger is happening here.
Yeah.
And someone else is calling these shots. Yeah.
I'm your biggest fans. I don't want you dying in the 3rd episode. Guardians of the Game is a real play Dungeons & Dragons podcast that's sure to excite and delight listeners of all ages.
How would you like your very own circus show right here?
Something good or something bad?
That is up to interpretation.
Whether you're a seasoned D&D veteran or looking for a wholesome but epic way to get into the game for the first time, Guardians of the Game has you covered. Let's get gaming, Guardians.
Well, my work here is done.
Guardians of the Game premieres on September 18th with new episodes every Wednesday.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Carol Selleck's Musical Me collection of picture books. This collection inspires kids to embark on a musical journey, and you're going to love it. Play For Me, Peter captures the excitement, challenge, and joy of making music. Sing For Me, Sarah encourages children to step into the spotlight and find their own voice with a beautiful original song at the end of the book. And at the end of Play For Me, Peter, you're going to find an original song to help kids learn how to read music and play a musical instrument. Both Play For Me, Peter and Sing For Me, Sarah are available at Amazon and at Carol's website, carolselleckbooks.com. My friends, I am really looking forward to this conversation. Our guest tonight and we met each other out in Kansas City, her hometown, at the Indie Author Summit. She's here to celebrate her children's book. It's called The Odd Dog. Please welcome to the show, Leia Barrett. Hey, Leia, how are you?
Hi, Jed. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here today.
What a lovely event we were at, and what a lovely city you live in.
Oh, thank you so much. I've lived here about 6 or 7 years now, and it's definitely a city on the grow. So it's always very exciting to welcome wonderful events like the Indie Author Summit where you and I met.
Yeah. And there's some, I don't know what her name is, but it escapes me, but there's some singer that evidently spending a lot more time in Kansas City than she did in the past. But I'm not sure.
I feel like she's fast, maybe. I feel like something to do with fast.
Maybe. Who knows?
Starts with an S. I don't know.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Odd Dog. I had an odd dog. He just left us, but he was pretty odd.
I don't generally like to have books that are based on specific dogs. This is actually the first in a series of books that follow the odd dog. I really wanted to create kind of an every dog, very much a mutt. And when my illustrator first gave me her vision for this dog, I remember I was meeting with some other authors and they said, "Oh my gosh, that reminds me of the dog I had when I was little." And that's the reaction I hear so often. it's a semblance of a dog. It's not meant to specifically look like any specific one. And I really love that because you'll see your dog in it, I think, especially if you're someone who loves rescue dogs and loves mutts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, pretty much all. We've had dogs all our life. My mother went through a period where she decided she wanted a purebred Saint Bernard and that she was going to breed it. And she successfully bred it, although too successful because most St. Bernards have a litter of 5.
Oh, my.
She had a litter of 15.
Oh, my goodness.
And we were living in an apartment in the inner city.
I feel like that's a whole episode in and of itself. But
her vision of making all sorts of money selling these puppies quickly evaporated because she was like, please, can you please take a dog? They're expensive. They eat a lot. They came out and they're about 6 feet tall when they came out.
And to be fair, I love the vision of 15 St. Bernards in an inner city apartment complex.
Yeah. Well, this was in Boston, we have these things called 3-deckers. So they're it's a one structure with three families living on top of each other. And, boy, and our neighbors in the house, because we had to take them out in the little backyard, which was like a postcard size. It's hard to keep up with 15 of them, in their messes. And so, yeah, it makes a nice story, but at the time, in the moment, it was a challenge.
So you didn't get another dog until you were an adult? No.
Well, I didn't. That was about the time I was 15 or 16 when that happened. So I was out of the house, shortly thereafter. And we didn't get a dog, until my daughter was 4. And, we would take a walk in the neighborhood and she knew every dog. And there was one dog in particular that would always come over and she just loved it. And so for her 4th birthday, my wife and I decided, let's go, and went to the shelter, and a border collie picked us. We had no idea what a border collie was. And boy, were we surprised.
Mm-hmm.
And took it home, and he was with us for about 13 years. And our last dog, that was a beagle and something else, also lasted about 13 years.
Oh, I co-own a painted tree stall, and that's a chain that has kind of, I always consider it Etsy if it was in person. Because it's very eclectic, and we're just about to start selling dog treats, and we're going to sell little donut-sized dog treats, and we're going to call them Beagles Bagels, and we're going to have a picture of my co-owner's beagle on the cover.
Awesome. Well, talking about, I didn't know what a border collie was. I knew what a beagle was, but I didn't know what living with a beagle was like. Oh, man.
They have a one-of-a-kind bark and personality, and they're wonderful, wonderful dogs. If you love a lot of character.
They have a lot of character. They have a lot of personality. Augie, he would let you know if he was disappointed in you or angry.
Yes.
He had a number of different ways of doing that. And, yes. He was a character.
Oh. And so the odd dog is loosely based on my dog Layla, who, I met shortly after she had door darted, which meant she, got worried by something and ran away from her foster mom, and she was actually on the streets for 18 days. And then she was recovered, and we were warned she was a flight risk. And so the odd dog is it's a story of a quirky little stray who's learning how to live with a family for the first time. And we do take a little bit of a flight of fancy with it. Basically, the odd dog learns life skills from other animals it's met in the wild. In this case, we place it at a park, and then it tries to show off those life skills with its new family because it really wants to belong. and they just don't really go according to plan. I will admit I feel like I've broken the rules with this book a little bit, because normally main characters are supposed to learn something. And in this case, the main character doesn't really learn anything. Their parents do. Their dog mom and dog dad, see that, Odd is doing these strange things that they shouldn't be doing in the house. And instead of scolding Odd or finding ways to change Odd, they find places where Odd can be themselves. And I purposely, I keep the gender, boy or girl, because, I feel like most dogs, the gender doesn't really matter that much. So I have fun kind of saying sometimes she and sometimes he. It really depends. So every dog that is featured in the Odd Dog is a real dog. When I did crowdfunding for this book, I gave family, friends, well-wishers the opportunity to have their dogs illustrated into the book as extras. I underestimated how popular that would be. There are just over 40 dogs who are featured in the book. And I actually did have a couple very brave, wonderful people who wanted to memorialize pets who have passed. And so like we still feature them doing what they love, and then they just have like a little rainbow color on there. And so when you see the book, you'll be able to see some of the dogs who still live on in the pages. And those definitely are the ones that tug at my heartstring quite a bit.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What a neat idea, and what a great marketing idea. And I'd like to talk more about that in a moment, but I was reading in some of the notes that you sent over that there's a 3-3-3 rule that families welcoming a rescue dog into their home should follow. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think we blew it with Augie.
Absolutely. So I did not know this until I adopted my first dog as an adult, but there are actually well-documented behaviors that if you recognize them, they can kind of help ease the transition for rescue dogs, because like any of us, when they're living in a new home for the first time, it can be a really stressful situation, and it is stressful. And at the end of the day, they really want to please, but they might not know how. And so there are basically some milestones that shelters and rescues see, and most dogs will exhibit behavior within these 3 benchmarks. So after 3 days, typically in the first 3 days, the dog is very, very overwhelmed. And so they might not eat. They might not go to the bathroom. They really, for those first days, it is recommended that they stay by themselves. And you just kind of give them their space. Let them have a space that is all their own. It's not unusual for them to just have a room that is theirs for the first couple of days, and you're not forcing them to eat or, probably you at least want to have things handy. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of new families, it can be a very alarming time. And most of the time, the dogs they don't act the way they did at the shelter. And so some people might say, oh my gosh, is my dog broken? Like, not, I'm joking a little bit. And so then after 3 weeks, the dog is starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. And that's when you're going to see, some little behaviors come out. If there are any bad habits, you'll start to see those. And so a lot of shelters will recommend in that first 3 weeks, you just want to get your dog really used to a routine. And the most, if you can be with them as much as possible and really establishing that routine, that's an ideal situation for them, because they really want to trust you. And they're just still, it's like they're starting to show their true selves. And so if there are any behavior issues, they're going to start to come out. And so a lot of shelters and rescues will recommend that you, that's a good time to start obedience training. You'll be able to get an idea of what they know and what they don't know. You can even rename the dog at that point if you really want to. Typically you'll just want to use treats. Very, very treat motivated. And, so then at the 3-month mark is the other really big benchmark. And, at that point, a dog feels like you're their pack. And so if you have giving them that time, giving them that space and that empathy, the 3 months is really when you're going to just start to see that payoff. Now, depending on the dog's background, there are some things that, there are some things they may never get over. They may always be a little reactive. They may always be a little fearful, depending on where they came from. But at that 3-month mark, they're really going to be loyal to you. They're going to see you as their family. And if you keep that consistent training and encouragement, that's when you're going to really see the personality of the dog come out. And I actually believe in this rule enough that my next book, my follow-up book to The Odd Dog, is called The Odd Dog's Guide to Making Friends. And I'm actually, that book is going to mimic some of the events that happened during the 333. My main character, Odd, is going to welcome a new dog into his home, and we as the reader are going to be observing those behavioral shifts through Odd's eyes.
Wow, neat. As a dog lover, I love this, and the idea of, I think it's real important because, like I said earlier, I didn't know what a border collie was. I didn't know what it was with a beagle. It worked out for us in both cases, probably because I had a lot of experiences with dogs when I was younger. Because in our neighborhood, it was everybody's dog was everybody's dog.
Yes.
That was back in the day with dogs. You let the dog out, let the kids and the dogs out in the morning, come home for supper. And, so, I had experience with lots of different dogs, but that's not the case anymore. The dogs don't run, typically, run off leash in cities or towns. And so kids don't have a chance to interact. And a lot of families, it's like, oh, let's get a dog. I don't know what to do. There's a lot more complicated than just going to the shelter and bringing him home.
Exactly. And I mean, right now, the United States is facing really an unprecedented adoption crisis where there are just way more dogs, due to a lot of circumstances I won't get into, having to do with COVID and people going back to work now. And so it's all the more important to be teaching children, and their families when they're first adopting a dog, that even if they need to give it time and patience and space. Like, I really hope that both books are going to really help spark those conversations of love and patience and empathy. Because as dog lovers know, a dog is completely worth any hassle you have at the beginning. They are worth it even from day one, even when things are tough. And so, I don't have $1 million. I can't free all the dogs and have a gigantic farm where they can all live. And so this is me trying to do my part to help, I hope, inspire some families who are maybe on the fence, not only to bring a dog into their home, but also to consider adoption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful thing. And, dogs have brought so much joy into our family. We just dog sat, and timing was really perfect because we said goodbye to Augie, and we were scheduled to take care of my daughter's dog the following weekend, and we just had a lot of fun with him. Dogs can bring a lot of joy into your life.
Absolutely. And this project is part of kind of a larger long-term plan. I have a local shelter, whose neighborhood is largely Hispanic. And our hope is that we can build the series out and then be able to, also translate it into a bilingual version that can be used to educate, particularly in the neighborhood. And I think that bilingual, especially in the next couple of years, is also going to be really helpful to shelters and rescues. As part of the soft launch for this book, which is happening in September 2024, I have been reaching out to shelters and rescues throughout the country, and I am seeking partnerships where the crowdfunding I'm doing will offer reward tiers where people can not only purchase copies of the book for themselves, but there will also be additional copies that can be donated to shelters and rescues. And they can use them for their own fundraising efforts, for advocacy efforts, education, whatever helps serve their mission. And that's something that from this point until the book is released and really beyond, I'm going to be continually seeking partners and really getting feedback from those shelters and rescues to make sure that the book really resonates with their mission and it really rings true. Because at the end of the day, a children's book still needs to have that accuracy, especially if you're going to put it in the hands of the people who can really make the most use out of it. Because so many shelters and rescues have talked about the 333 rule, and they say it's one of the first things that people forget. You have to send out reminders almost constantly, because even if you tell them, even if you give them a forum, they'll still call and say, "Oh my gosh, my dog isn't eating. I don't know what to do." And part of that is they tug at our hearts right away. And it's just like having a sick child. You don't know, you reason leaves you. And so maybe a book like this can be a nice little reminder. My dream is mom and dad are panicking, and then, little Jimmy comes in the room and says, "Well, it's okay. See here." She pulls up the book, and it's okay. Sometimes they don't eat in the first couple of days.
Yeah, perfect. You mentioned earlier the reward tier of having your dog featured in the book.
Yes.
That is such. I love crowdfunding projects. My daughter and I, we helped fund some recording artists that we really liked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so great to see your name on the back of the book or the back of an album, thinking, I helped make this come true. I helped bring this into the world. And that's a really rewarding thing. And that idea of having your dog featured in the book as a reward. What a great idea. And I'm celebrating that because we do have a lot of indie authors listening and a lot of aspiring authors. And I think crowdfunding is such a great way to launch a book. I think it is, and to do it successfully, you really need to kind of think out of the box like you did.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I can't take 100% credit. Tamara Rittenhouse has a mermaids book where she had some mermaids, but I looked at them and I said, well, people just love their dogs. And I could not believe how popular that ended up being. It's, if you can have an illustrator who is willing to kind of go with you on this journey, it really does pay off. I mean, looking at the dogs just coming out of the page, she did such a beautiful job just putting their personalities, as I've been sharing softly with the people who got their dogs in the book. Every one of them says, "Oh my gosh, I saw my dog immediately. That is exactly like my dog. That is what they do. That is," it's something that's very touching for them and very special. And I truly believe that starting a book release with an energy like that is so important. And since I know you have a lot of indie author listeners, I'm going to reiterate one thing that I remember Jay Maletsky talked about. I attended a crowdfunding webinar he did once, and he said, crowdfunding is good for raising money, but it's also a way to get some early market research and to really gauge who your audience is and what they're going to like. And one of the best things for a book is honestly to have a crowdfunding campaign fail, because if the idea wasn't quite right, then you still have time to kind of go back and say, okay, how can I make this better? And you can still keep in touch with those supporters. But I've never forgotten that. It's such a unique perspective on crowdfunding, because so often we are hyper focused on we're hyper focused on getting the money so we can make the book. But sometimes a failed campaign, which I have experienced, can be the best teacher.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, this is our passion, but it's also our business. So there's so many reasons that I love crowdfunding campaigns. I'm like you, where I love, seeing an idea come to life as well. I support way too many crowdfunding campaigns.
Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the Odd Dog and maybe participate in bringing book 2 into the world.
Absolutely. So, if you would like to see the Odd Dog shop, you can go to theodddogbook.com and you'll be able to see all those products. And, you will also be able to see the new book at odddogguide.com. And at the end of the month, that will also be a pre-order store. And you can get the Odd Dog at odddogguide.com as well. So those are a couple places you want to check out.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Odd Dog. It's a beautiful children's book from our guest, Leia Barrett. Leia,
Thank you
so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jed. I really appreciate it.
This episode is brought to you by Daphne Draws Data. From the imaginative mind of best-selling author Cole Nussbaumer Knaflick and the vibrant illustrations of John Skewers comes a story that will captivate kids and grown-ups alike. Daphne is not your ordinary dragon. She doesn't breathe fire. She breathes life into numbers, turning them into pictures that solve mysteries, forge friendships, and save the day. Daphne's journey celebrates unique talents, the power of teamwork, and the beauty of seeing the world through a different lens. This dragon's tale is perfect for parents and educators to inspire the next generation of curious minds and innovative thinkers. Get your copy today. Daphne Draws Data. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Kansas. Our guest is here today to celebrate her debut novel. It is the first in what's going to become a great series. It's called Ghost Town Treasure Hunt. Please welcome to the show, Abbi Lee. Hey, Abbi, how are you?
Hi, good. Happy to be here.
Delighted to have you on. Tell us about this Ghost Town Treasure Hunt, please.
Yeah. So this is actually the first in the middle grade series Geocache Club. And this particular book follows 11-year-old Leighton Clark. His best friend ends up moving away and he's kind of beside himself and wonders if he's ever going to have another adventure ever again. And then he meets Sherry and she introduces him to the treasure hunting world of geocaching. And then their thirst for adventure kind of sends them all over town. And eventually it sends them to an abandoned Kansas ghost town. And while they're there, they have to work together to unlock clues in these strange geocaches that they find. They have to solve a 100-year-old mystery to help clear a dead man's name. And they need to convince Leighton's father, who's an archaeologist, that the town is worth studying so Leighton doesn't have to move away.
Okay, so a couple of things. I'm sure everybody who's listening knows all about geocaching, but I don't. So you got to tell me all about it.
Yeah, that's pretty common. Geocaching, like I said, it's basically modern day treasure hunting. And you use your GPS coordinates to find a container or an item that's called a geocache. And it was hidden by another person called a geocacher. When you find that geocache, you sign the log to show that you found it. And you can, sometimes you can take things from it. Like sometimes they've got trade and replace geocaches where there's fun little trinkets in it. So you can take a trinket and leave a trinket. Sometimes they're hidden in like the forest, in a park, at the zoo. Cemeteries are actually a really common place. So yeah, it's just a fun little treasure hunt that people can do. And there's millions of them all over the world.
Wow. And so where do you get these coordinates to search?
Yeah. So basically you just go to geocaching.com or you can download the app and everything's in there for you. It'll find geocaches based on your location. I know where I'm at in Kansas, there's hundreds of geocaches around me. And so you just pick one and it gives you clues, or maybe it's a riddle that you have to solve to find it. And then you just go exploring.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm thinking that would be a really fun hobby for a family to do together.
Oh, yes. I went recently with both of my daughters. One of them's 9, one of them's 6. And my 9-year-old loved it. She thought she was really treasure hunting, and that's what she felt like. And she's the one who found the geocache, so she had so much pride and ownership behind it. And as soon as we were done, she's asking for the next one. So it's a great time.
So very cool. And it sounds like it's a lot more safer than, I guess, a few years ago, the kids are playing the Pokemon game where they...
Oh, yeah, Pokemon Go.
On their phone, and they weren't paying attention and falling into wells and things like that. That's terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
So, now, you mentioned that they're exploring a ghost town in Kansas. Are there really ghost towns in Kansas?
Yes, actually, there are hundreds of ghost towns in Kansas. They basically came around once the railroad was built and it was going through Kansas. So all these little towns all around Kansas, people deserted them because the railroad skipped their town, or it went 10 miles north or something like that. And they couldn't survive. The town couldn't survive. And so now you have ghost towns where there's maybe a couple shacks. Sometimes it's just a mound of dirt that you just have to know, oh, that was like a house, and that just collapsed in because it was abandoned. But yeah, there's hundreds of them.
Wow. Fascinating. Really fascinating. I'm sorry, I forget your main character's name.
Leighton.
Yeah. Leighton's predicament of having that really, really close friend that, it's just like you're brothers from other mothers, and you're there and you're together all the time. And then something happens. The kids move, or they have to change schools or whatever. And I imagine for somebody like Leighton, that might have been terrifying, thinking, wow, I'm not going to be able to go on these adventures. I'm not going to have another best friend.
Yeah. And Leighton, his best friend, they knew each other since they were like in kindergarten. So they've known each other for a really long time. And yeah, when he left, Leighton didn't know what to do. He didn't have very many other friends, even though he knew all of his classmates for years. He just hadn't gone out and made those friends. And Leighton is not a friend of change. He does not like it. And so you see through the book kind of how he has to adapt to change a little bit, and how sometimes maybe change isn't that bad. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. So what's the inspiration for the story? Were you out geocaching with your daughters and you said, I can create a series?
It's kind of a weird inspiration, honestly. So I only found out about geocaching a few years ago, and I've gone a few times, and I did it by myself for a while just to see what it was. And my girls were a little younger, so it wasn't really a great age for them at that point. But before that, even during my first year of teaching, because I used to teach high school, and I was talking with another teacher, and she told me about Forrest Fenn. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Forrest Fenn, but in 2010, he hid an actual treasure chest somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. And it was said that treasure chest contained millions of dollars worth of gold and other valuables, things that we won't know about. But he published a memoir, and in that memoir was a poem, and he left clues in the poem for people to try and go find the treasure. And the whole point was to get people outside and explore and be in nature. So he did a real life treasure hunt. And the idea was it was going to be in the Rocky Mountains somewhere. And so, I was captivated by that story. I thought it was so much fun. I kind of made my own little map and my plan on what I thought, like where I thought the treasure would be. I was really off because they did find the treasure in 2020. It was in Wyoming. So it was nowhere close to where I thought it was. But it was still really fun. And then when I learned about geocaching and I did that for a little bit, something just kind of clicked. And I kind of thought of those two different worlds. I'm like, you know what? I kind of wonder what would happen if someone was on a geocache hunt and then it actually led to a real treasure hunt. And so now we get to find out what happens with Leighton and Sherry.
Well, that's really, I love that story. What a great way to birth a book series in a book. Did you always aspire to be a children's author?
No, actually, I wanted to be a teacher for as long as I could remember. And, you know, I loved to write. I loved to read as a kid, but I just never really figured out that, oh, you know, an author wasn't always an author. You know, they weren't born an author. You know, anyone could be one kind of thing. I just never really made that connection until a few years ago. And yeah, so I became a teacher. And then when my kids came around, I stayed at home and we read so many books, so many books, and they still love to read. And so eventually I just had an idea for a book and I was like, oh, okay, this might be something. And honestly, it was terrible. It was a horrible first book to write. And it will never see the light of day, but it started this whole journey of becoming an author and writing all these books. So
that's wonderful. You know, I was really scared you were going to say, like, I always wanted to be a teacher, and then I got a job as a teacher, and I decided I don't want to do this.
Oh. No, I loved teaching. I had some really good schools. I do miss being around the kids because I don't teach anymore. I do miss the students. They were a lot of fun, but I definitely love what I'm doing now. So,
well, you know, you still are teaching because obviously you are your children's first and most important teacher. But you're also teaching through your writing. I mean, you taught me tonight about geocaching. I had no idea. I think I'm going to go out and my wife is probably going to be afraid I'll break my neck. But, you know, I'm learning about something new, and I'm sure that this book is going to inspire families to get out just like that the person that buried the treasure in the Rockies, your book is going to inspire families to get out into nature more together. And that's a really beautiful thing because I think it's something that's, really missing these days.
Yeah, I think, geocaching is just such a good way for parents to be with their kids or grandparents to take their kids out and explore. And, you know, kids love to explore and it gets them like, yes, you're on your phone because you have the Geocache app or you're on the website. But you're really not on the phone that much. And so I really like how screen-free activity it is, and it gets you outside, and it really gets you to explore your city and your neighborhood and your community. And it's just a lot of fun. So yeah, I really hope when people read this book that that's something they want to do. They want to go explore. Yeah.
So very important. You know, I think a lot of parents, especially parents of older kids, middle school kids, high school kids, you know, it's like, it's natural for the kids to start to want to break away and be independent. Yes. And, we should acknowledge that and support that. But at the same time, they still want us in their lives. They still want to do stuff with us, even if they complain and they say they don't. They really do. We are, as parents, we are, incredibly important people to them. You know, we were the people that when they were babies, we were the most important people in their world. And we help them grow by, reading with them and listening to them and asking them questions and letting them know that we, really care about what they think and what their opinion is. And, they're going to want to keep doing that. So, I hope you take the time to sit back and reflect that, hey, I'm helping families reconnect and grow closer together through my books and through encouraging them to get out into nature.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. Where is the series going to take us? Will we take us on a number of different geocaching adventures?
Well, my editor has book number 2 right now. And so nothing's confirmed with it. But there may or may not be a geocache going into space. And then book 3, it's still very much an outline, so I can't give you too much there. But I have it's supposed to be the end of the series, so I'm sure we will wrap up this whole treasure that Leighton and Sherry kind of run into.
Cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. What's the, you probably have an audience of your kids. What do they think about the book?
Oh, they are very excited. They haven't read the whole book yet. I'm supposed to be getting my author copies within the week, and so I'm pretty excited about that. And then they will read it. They've already claimed a couple copies. So, no, they're very excited, very supportive. And yeah, they're just, some days they're kind of like, Mom, you're an author. You wrote a book. This is really cool. And other days, they're just like, whatever, Mom. It's your job, whatever.
We should tell everybody where they can go, and let us know if they need to use their GPS, to find out more about you and find out more about Ghost Town Treasure Hunt.
Yeah. Well, my website is abbileebooks.wordpress.com. And that's a really good spot to it's kind of a all info in one spot kind of place. I keep it updated pretty well, but I'm also on Twitter, which I think is X now, Instagram, Facebook. So people can find me there, just Abbi Lee Books. And yeah, that's the best way to kind of stay in touch and keep tabs on what I'm doing.
Wonderful. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Ghost Town Treasure Hunt. It is the debut book and the first book in the Geocache Club series from our guest, Abbi Lee. Abbi, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Back here at Authorpalooza. I just love the name, Authorpalooza. It's cool. We're here at Authorpalooza, Norwalk, Connecticut. Joining us once again, Heidi Rocha. Heidi, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Jed. It's always a pleasure.
You wrote this great series talking to kids about great dental hygiene, right?
Absolutely. So, a little back information. Mm-hmm. I'm a pediatric dental hygienist by trade. Been in the business 35 years. When I introduce myself to anybody, they say, oh, no offense, I hate the dentist, right? That's what my book's, I'm on a mission to change everybody's mindset. What better way to do it? Start with the kids, teach them good hygiene, get them in good habits, get them to the dentist early, teach them not to be afraid to go to the dentist, and then hopefully the rest is history. Then sparkly smiles forever.
Yeah, I'm blown away. I don't know if we talked about this a few months back at another live event, but I was amazed to find out that dental hygiene, good dental hygiene, is important not only so that you keep the teeth that you've been blessed with for as long as you can, hopefully for your whole life, but there's a lot of you can prevent heart attacks and stuff like that. What's the connection between?
It's all connected. I'm going to give you a silly little example.
Okay.
Your foot bone's connected to your ankle bone's connected to your leg bone. It's all interconnected. So if you have infection in your mouth, it gets into your bloodstream and it can go all over and affect all sorts of things in your body.
Wow. And just think, just by starting a good habit can really have a lifetime of benefits.
For your whole entire body.
Yeah.
For your whole entire body, absolutely. Yep.
So on your table, you have this big cuddly green monster. Who is that green monster?
That's my buddy Dino.
Dino.
Dino comes with me everywhere. Dino has a big mouth, big teeth, and a big toothbrush to go with it. So everybody gets to practice brushing Dino's teeth. And Dino is actually one of the stars in my book, Maggie, Toothbrushing with Maggie and Mommy. Dino is the star in that book. So.
That's cool. Yes. Dino has a very impressive set of choppers there. I must say, they look kind of human almost. It's great.
It's a little bit creepy. I've been told. It's a little creepy, but I think he's super cute, and it's a great visual, and it's a great hands-on for kids to practice.
Yeah, I've been watching here at Authorpalooza. The kids are coming in, and they are just having a blast brushing his teeth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're brushing. They're counting the 10 in every spot. They remember to do his tongue so he doesn't have any stinky breath. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just like the books tell you.
Boy, you just made me self-conscious. I had a sausage and pepper sandwich for lunch, and I got to put my hand over my mouth here.
You're good. You're
okay.
good. You're safe. It's all good.
Okay. I hear there's a new book in the series coming out.
There is. So I did Toothbrushing with Maggie and Mommy, Maggie Visits the Dentist, and an activity book and brushing tracker, all going along with Maggie, because I have a daughter named Maggie, and of course, she was my inspiration, and everybody came to me and said, well, where are the boy books? So now I have Toothbrushing with Stevie and Friends. I have a Stevie brushing tracker and activity book, and coming hopefully in September is Stevie Visits the Dentist.
Awesome.
So, yeah, along the same lines, the Visiting the Dentist books go step by step through what actually happens at a children's dental visit, and I use the terms that we use in the dental field and no scary words or scary pictures, so it's all with a positive spin and a happy ending.
So no pictures of that big metal hook that my hygienist puts in and starts yanking on my...
And no talk of drills in your teeth or, the big... with the N-word, we don't talk about that. It's, the tooth tickler and the princess muscles and, kissing Mr. Thirsty. So it's all got a little cute pediatric positive spin to it.
How did you develop this passion? Because for a lot of folks, it's a job, but you have a real passion about encouraging and inspiring kids to have good dental hygiene.
Well, it's funny, when you're getting ready to choose what you want to do for your life, I had no idea what I wanted to do. My next door neighbor at the time was a dental hygienist, and she said, come watch me, come shadow me, and see what you think. And I did, and I pretty much was like, yeah, I don't know what else I'm going to do, so why not? It sounds fun. And here I am 35 years later working in the same dentist office that I started at when I was 3 years old as a patient.
Wow.
Went through it all through my childhood, went to college, got out, started working in that same dental office that I went to, and never left. So when you are lucky enough to start with a good, positive dental office, role model, and then you can continue on, it kind of inspires you, and it's, everybody is this passionate and this excited about teeth in that office. So,
are there any things like when we talk to a speech pathologist or some other kind of specialist, I oftentimes ask, what should we look for with our kids, and that might be a clue that they need to get themselves to a specialist. Is there obviously you want to bring your kid to the dentist as soon as possible, but are there certain things we should be aware of that we can share with our dentist that might be a clue that can prevent some problems in the future?
I will say in pediatrics, I think the most important thing is to establish your dental home at a very, very young age. Like before you would think. It's recommended to see a dentist by the time your child's 1 year of age. And a lot of people kind of look at me like I have two heads when I say that. But It's preventive. It's talking about what you need to be doing and what's going to be happening in the future and how you should handle it. And almost like a well child visited the pediatricians. And if you get yourself into a good office and you build a good rapport with the people in that office, they will guide you properly at each step of the game. Every step of the game, getting new teeth, wiggly teeth, permanent teeth coming in, braces. Each step of the game, there's different things that you kind of need to focus on. And if you get yourself into a good dental office to begin with, they will guide you throughout the whole process.
And one last thing, if your kid has a wiggly tooth, what's the best way to help that tooth come out? Is it still the string on the tooth on the doorknob and open up the door?
No, I would not recommend that. So my advice, a tooth will come out when it's good and ready. Okay? The best way when it's really, really wiggly is wiggle and twist. Don't just wiggle. And when it's ready, it will come out. Now, let me tell you a little secret about the tooth fairy. I don't know if you know this.
It's been a while since we had the tooth fairy come.
Well, that's a good thing. The tooth fairy likes the cleanest teeth the best. So the better care you take of your teeth, when the tooth fairy gets your tooth, if it's super clean, you're going to get a better prize.
Ooh.
Bet you didn't know that, did you?
I didn't know that. And I'm also curious, we talk about the economy and inflation. What does a tooth fairy usually leave these days for a tooth?
So that's a really good question. It depends.
Okay.
So sometimes the tooth fairy has a whole bunch of stops to make in a night. Okay? So she has to divvy up her money between a whole bunch of stops, right? Sometimes you get money. Sometimes you get a prize. Sometimes you get a note that might have some tooth fairy dust sprinkled on it. It kind of depends. Yeah.
Wow. Where can people go to find out more about you and find out more about your books?
So my books, the Sparkly Smile series, they are all on Amazon. That's probably the easiest way to find them. And I also have a website, Sparkly Smiles Series. So you can go onto the website, too, if you'd like an autographed copy of any of those books. I'd be more than happy to send those out.
And is that sparklysmileseries.com?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
Yep.
Heidi Rocha, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Jed, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. We hope you enjoyed it so much, you're going to join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Great way to make sure you don't miss a moment of Reading with Your Kids is to subscribe to Reading with Your Kids on whatever podcasting platform you choose to use. We love the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple, Good Pods. But you can find us on, in fact, I don't know all the podcasting platforms we're on. And if you are subscribed to us, we'd love it if you could leave a 5-star review. That will really help grow the show, helping more families grow closer through reading. And if you are listening on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, please let your local station manager know that you love Reading with Your Kids. I want to take a moment to thank the people who made today's show so wonderful. I want to thank our guest, Leia Barrett. Please be sure to check out The Odd Dog. Also want to thank Abbi Lee. Please be sure to check out Ghost Town Treasure Hunt. And we want to thank Heidi Rocha. Be sure to check out her wonderful series. I need to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Ruling Tang, Alyssa Montiero. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.